Hi, I'm Mike Bizzelli, and recently I was joined by a very talented group of comedy writers and performers to discuss the process of writing for stage, screen, and publication. The event was moderated by Brian Edward of Berg Vivant, and the panel included Gab Bonesso and Krish Mohan, stand-up comedians, Heidi Nagel, a sketch comedian, and James Fitzgerald, a local actor. This fun event was hosted by the Third Street Gallery, and we raised money for the Boys and Girls Club of Carnegie. Here's an episode from our panel.
We're back. Wonderful. All right, part two of our discussion on comedy. Once again, James Fitzgerald, Heidi Nagel, Gab Bonesso, Michael Bizzelli, Krish Mohan, and I am Brian Edward. Before we took a break, we were talking a bit about the importance of knowing your audience and to what degree you adjust to suit them. And Gab, you gave us an example of when you were performing in West Virginia, tried out a Trump joke, didn't go so well, so you pivoted and adjusted on the fly.
Right.
Now, Jim, you gave an example of doing a comedy piece sort of based on the movie Psycho for an audience that had never seen it and therefore didn't laugh. And there was really nothing you could do about that except cut that bit later, but in the present, you were just kind of stuck with a bomb. Right? So,
Still have nightmares about that moment.
Right, PTSD, I understand. So, to what degree do you feel it is your job or your responsibility as a comedian to satisfy that particular audience, to adapt to them versus just completely be yourself?
Oh man, I'm weird in this, and I've gotten into a lot of arguments with other comics. I'm real stubborn. I don't change my act for anybody. You don't get to tell me what I get to do on my stage. That's how I look at it. I'm real stubborn about it, and I've been on stage to a room where I did a room at a casino with 289 people that bought tickets, and 115 people walked out by the end of the show. And I kept telling them, I was like, hey, this show is about us. That's what this is. So, I'm not trying to offend you or anything, but this is what I believe, and I think this show is about us. And it's a real weird moment because I can sense the tension in the room, but I don't change my act for anybody. People ask me if I go into urban rooms, into black rooms, do I change my act? No. There's still a crowd, and I treat every crowd just like every other crowd. So I go in and I try to do the best that I can, and if they're not on board with me, that's fine. In my younger years, I have made the mistake, and I've literally said on stage that I'm about to punish you with my comedy. And that is no way to get people on board, but at least you can try to get them to loosen up so you can continue to be yourself. So making that plea of this show is about each other. So if we can open up and just be a little bit more open-minded about this content, which is different and is challenging what you go about on your regular day-to-day, I think we're going to be okay and have a good time.
So it was their fault for coming to the show.
Absolutely.
Oh, dare they?
And the doors are locked.
But it hasn't, had a negative effect on your career, has it? I mean, you're getting work, right?
I just don't get booked at comedy clubs or back at that casino. And that's fine, because that's not a room that wants to see what I'm doing anyway. So it's knowing what rooms I want to try to perform in. So a lot of the type of stuff that I do, which is in my bio, are little DIY spaces. The rooms that I'm not going to clear like $500 for a night. It's rooms I'll clear maybe $80 to $100 at night. But I'm having more fun, and I'm being more honest about who I am on stage. I don't have to curtail my honesty in any way. And that is a personal choice that I make. I am not willing to forgo who I am and my own honesty for the sake of the audience. I'm not there to make them feel comfortable, because to me, and this is a personal view of mine, comedy is meant to challenge you. I've always enjoyed comedy that has challenged me. I watched Bill Hicks when I was 14, when I thought marijuana was a bad idea, right? And he did a whole bit about why you should do psychedelics and marijuana.
It's still a bad idea.
It's fun. They're eventually going to learn. But it helped me change my views on it. Comedy helped me figure out what my truth was and the objective aspect of the truth.
So you're pointing at something.
I just wanted you to go down the line with that because
Well,
I have a thought.
I do want to ask for more perspectives on this from the group, and also from those of you that write comedy in various ways. How important is adapting or, I guess, serving that audience?
My theory on comedy, I feel like a lot of comedians, I'm not saying Krish is this person, but I feel a lot of comedians are there for themselves, and a lot of other comedians are there for the audience. And I think you have to be there for the audience. That's the way I do it is I enjoy, I was going to use another word, but I chose enjoy. I enjoy having the response. So, and in making people feel welcome and comfortable and having a good time. That's like, I'm a host dude. That's kind of like what I like to do. So we have very different perspectives on this. I don't like to make people feel uncomfortable. I want people to feel like they can talk to me, that like we can just have a conversation, or that like when I'm writing, a lot of people tell me, oh, this sounds just like you. When I read it, I hear your voice in my head. And that's kind of what I want, because, I just want people to have a good time.
And now, Gab, you've already given us one example of how you've adapted kind of on the fly, but you also perform a lot for children.
Yeah.
How different is your act between when it's for adults and when it's for children? How do you adapt it, if you do?
I do, yeah. So like yesterday I was doing a middle school at 8:30 a.m. because, I'm a glutton for punishment. And middle school kids, man, like you can actually do some stand-up and they want you to do stand-up, because they're older and they're like, so you're a comedian, like do a couple material. So I just do my material clean. I don't swear. But I have learned like jokes that I think are family friendly that aren't appropriate for an elementary school. Perfect example, I have a joke where all I do is I accidentally run over a groundhog. That's like the beginning part of the joke. The rest of the joke is killer. The punchlines will make you piss yourself. If you buy my album, Everyone's Dead, you can. Anyway, so I did the joke at a school, but just saying that I ran over a groundhog had a group of first graders sobbing. And I was like, didn't think about how the way you see a groundhog in like cartoon form from Bambi. So you learn really quickly, and I also would say like performing for pre-K is a whole beast. Performing for K to 4 is a whole other beast. 5 and 6 separate. 7 to 8 completely separate, and then high school is like closer to being for adults. But like it is niche, and for me, because I don't have kids, I don't have nieces and nephews, it's a lot of talking to them, hearing what they're interested in, and then I've watched more Paw Patrol than a single woman should ever watch, but you know what? I can make those jokes and the kids like it. So, and I also want to say, like, when I'm adjusting my material, I used to be like, Krish a little bit more. My hero is Lenny Bruce. So when I was like, I'm like 25 years old, I was like, F you audience, here's my truth, and now I'm sort of like, well, I can still do my truth, but I can do it on the fly. Like I've really collected enough material that I don't write a set list anymore. I go in, I feel you guys, and that's where the set's gonna go. Like it is about us together, because I think stand-up is the one art that is 100% dependent on you. So if you are miserable and hating me the whole time, I don't want to be here. This is I'm the captain of this ship, and I am not going to, make us sing. So I just adjust that way. So.
Now, Heidi, with sketch comedy, I imagine that if you're doing a sketch comedy show and one sketch really doesn't get as many laughs as all the others, you might cut it or adjust it. But prior to getting on stage, when you're composing this material, are you taking your intended audience into consideration?
We are, and it's hard because we start writing our material for a show like 2 months in advance. So the closer we get to that show, it's not funny to us anymore. Like we then start to second guess it, and we're like, is this funny? Like, I don't even know. Here we go. Let's do this stupid sketch. And then people are dying. They're laughing hysterically. And we're like, oh, that was funny. And then on the other end, you have the problem where, if the audience doesn't like it, well, buckle up, because you got 3 minutes left of this sketch about a kid who's time traveling back in time to stop his dad from finding his porn collection. Like, it's like, we can't adjust them because we have sound cues built in. We sometimes have a video component. We have blocking. We have set pieces. So it's like, that's the real stressful part of that is, you know, we might think it's hilarious, you might not, but we're all in it together now, so.
Pay your money and take your chances.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So Jim, I know you've done a lot of similar work to like with sketch and things, and you do have the ability to change, but in maybe when you're dealing with a script or a piece of material that you can't change, because you are not the writer or anything like that, what freedoms do you have if it's not going well as the actor performing?
There are certain things you can do. You know, that's what rehearsal is for. I mean, you craft moments, comedic moments. It's like every actor will admit, and everybody says they quoted it. Dying is easy, comedy is hard. It takes so much work. It takes so much work because it is about timing, or the lack thereof. You know, you have to trust what you do. That's why it takes, you know, it's been said, for every 3 minutes on stage, you rehearse 4 hours. Because it is about moving a chair. It can be so simple. A gesture, a turn of phrase, the rhythms of your speech. But when you're in the moment on stage and you need to grab someone's attention, you can make a gesture, talk louder, talk slower, you know. And then I said, oh, they're awake now. You know, first I talk loud, then I talk soft, then I talk loud again. You know, there's certain things you can do. You can alter your timing, you know, to see which lands the better. Because one rule of theater is you have to believe the audience is never wrong. The audience can never be wrong. If you start blaming them or winking at them out of embarrassment, I know this isn't very funny, you're dead. You have to stay with the story. You have to take them on the journey. That's what these plays are about. You know the roller coaster ride. They don't. So you take them with you along this little roller coaster ride. So there are certain things you can mickey with within the performance, but you keep it the integrity of the play or the comedy that you're in, you know. Yeah, there's certain actor tricks, see? To keep your attention going, to give you the new information, to make the joke.
It's scary. You like fell on me. I was like,
Scary.
I got you.
It's, you know, that's the nature of slamming door farces. It takes so much energy to be funny. You're exhausted. I always hate, speaking of not hating your audience, you know, after a performance, people will say, you look like you're having so much fun up there. No, I'm working. I'm sweating my balls off. I'm running around. But it takes a lot of work and energy. But you have to make it look like it's effortless.
Dying is easy, comedy is hard. What is the hardest thing about it for each of you? Or what would you change about the field if you could?
Well, they are fun when you ride the wave of an audience, and they're going, and they're getting it, and you're getting your laughs, and you know, they're really with you. That's great. You don't have to work as hard. You're riding the surfboard.
Yeah.
You know, that's
That man's made me like Dickens.
Hmm?
You have made me like Dickens.
Well, because you're not like Dickens, which is a conversation for another time.
Dickens is funny. Dickens is funny. You get quirky characters. Dickens is a great example. You get all of these quirky characters that you don't know what they're going to do next. You don't know what's going on with them. But they're all part of the same world. You know, you get, I mean,
Yeah.
Scrooge has laughs.
Okay.
Scrooge has a couple of good sarcastic laughs. You know, our little Christmas.
Yes.
He's very sarcastic. And he does have a sense of humor. You know,
Yeah.
he's not Mr. Dark. And that's, everyone assumes, like Scrooge is a great example, everybody assumes he's always depressed. There's nothing in the book about him being depressed. He loves his life.
Well, doesn't it get to the point where he's just so miserly that it's funny? I mean, Jack Benny made a career out of that kind of
Oh,
comedy.
absolutely. I'm thinking, you know, the best
Yeah.
the best technique in the world. You're all familiar with the Robert sketch with Jack Benny?
Give me your money or your life.
That's the title of the sketch.
This is the sketch.
That's the whole sketch.
You want to?
Your money or your life.
I'm thinking!
And I believe that was received the longest sustained laughter in radio history. And then I think when television came along, it was beat by Carol Burnett's show, the Went with the Wind sketch,
Yeah.
where she comes in the costume. The curtain rod.
Because you're setting up
just something I
an
saw in the window and had
expectation.
to have it.
You set up the expectation and then you change it. you change the result.
So it's all great when it works well, but what's your greatest challenges? What are your greatest fears? What's the hardest thing about this for you?
You know, you're looking at me. So
I'm looking at everybody.
Okay, well, I'm going to say brevity, because I feel like the soul of wit is
Yeah.
brevity. It's getting it down to the shortest thing. I always say a joke is a very, very short story with a surprise ending. It's getting it down to the right little words so you have enough that it explains what you're talking about, but not too much where people are like bored with it by the time you finish
You're already
it.
ahead of you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Editing.
editing has been my biggest challenge. The last show I wrote was an hour and a half.
I saw that.
And I'm fine with it. But it's accepting the fact that I am going to be very long-winded, so how do I not become too long-winded? And that's part of the reason why I'm so stubborn about going in certain rooms, because I write with a thesis statement in mind, because what's funnier than a thesis statement? But so I kind of construct a narrative surrounding that. There's a point that I'm trying to get to, and every single thing that I'm going to talk about is either proving or disproving that point to help me arrive to the conclusion, which ends up being my closer, which is about 37 minutes. No, I'm kidding. But it's all about editing, right? What is the important aspects? And if I'm trying to take a 360 view at all of these things, what are the things that are the most important for me to talk about, and how do I pare it all down so that the next show doesn't have to be an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours, where I just keep going and going and going. So right now, the show that I'm working on is clocking in at about an hour and 15. It's probably still a little too long, but that's because there are some elements of the show that are very new and I'm very excited about, and when I get very excited about something, I just keep talking about it, you know, and that's where I need to go. I'm so excited. How do I capture my excitement about this topic and start paring the information down, right? What's the important aspect of it? What's the absurd aspect of it? And how do I turn this stuff into a joke? Or is the intent of me introducing this idea even for a joke? Or is just the idea important enough for the rest of the show? And then the jokes will come a little bit later. And how do I keep people engaged till I get to that joke point? So editing and figuring out those sort of things is a challenge for me, but I like that. That's why I keep writing new shows every year and a half, or however long I decide that I need to keep working on the show. That's the exciting part of it for me.
Can I ask Chris a question?
Absolutely.
How excited are you now?
For this? for this? God, I love the academics of comedy. I really do.
I was just going to say, for me right now, the thing that I worry the most about with an audience is that, and this is sad because it's a reality that's going on, is that my mania, my truth could trigger your truth. And I need to be able to express my truth, you know? And so recently in 2 shows, adult shows, 2 adult men came up to me and said they suffer from social anxiety, and just my mere energy made them so uncomfortable they had to walk out of the club. But then they both came back to tell me that. Hashtag social anxiety triggering the bipolar girl. And then one of them asked me out. So I'm just if my energy is really bad, you don't want to hear my comedy, I don't think we're going to sleep together. Okay, next. Sorry.
My comment is maybe also a question, and you know, well, I don't know, this has been happening for forever, but when did it become socially acceptable for the audience to yell things at comedy artists? Like stand up, also sketch, people think they have something funny to add, and they will yell from the audience in the middle of a sketch. And I'm just curious, like even as a patron, I didn't pay to hear your opinion, sir. Like I am here to see these fine folks. So I'm curious, like.
Well, how do you feel about that when somebody does that?
It drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. And I just don't know when it started and when it became a thing.
Do you ignore it or do you guys play with it?
We try and ignore it at first,
Okay.
and then eventually we say, we have to say something. I feel like for the people who are sitting around them who are getting annoyed, we have to like,
I have to tell you though, I have a friend that an audience member made his joke better.
oh really?
Yeah, he had a joke. It's like, I only half hear my wife, so she said go out and get some head cheese. Okay? And he goes, and of course I came back with cheese. Well, before he said, of course I came back with cheese, someone in the audience yelled out, a block of cheddar, which made the joke much funnier.
Because it was a specific
It's
cheese?
a specific cheese, and there was a case out there.
Specificity is funny.
Yes.
K's
Yeah,
are funny.
the K's are funny, they always are funny.
Cincinnati isn't funny. Kankakee.
Hilarious.
My friend, this is a true story, my friend Sandy, who was supposed to be here today, she went to camp, can't you come?
Oh,
Yeah. It was an Indian word, apparently,
Yeah, but then,
with K's.
that stood for,
I don't know. I don't know what those Indians were doing,
it's the
but
old,
that was the name of the camp.
it's the old vaudeville rule
Right.
of comedy. The old time rules of comedy from vaudeville. An old actor, we were doing research for our show, and he was an old vaudevillian. He grew up in vaudeville. Like, his parents were in vaudeville. You know, that story of him sleeping, you know, in the chest of drawers.
Because they didn't have a car.
Jack Alberts. He had the most appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show of any other person.
wow.
He wound up being a magician in a joke shop. But he did all these acts. And we were interviewing him for the local PBS station in Chicago. He says, like, you want to know the secret of comedy? First of all, hold your arms like this. That's funny. Don't do this. Lean when you talk. Hi. Soles of the feet are funny. And he just had all these aphorisms. Rules of three. If you're going to do it once, you have to do it 3 times.
Yeah.
Learn how to do a double take. You have to learn how to do a double take from vaudeville comedy. Yeah. If you can do a triple take, you can teach me. But you had all of these rules that apply still.
The rules are important.
You have to know them before you can break them.
Exactly, that is true.
And then on our previous topic, to what degree do these rules apply to an audience? I mean, I know there are, generally accepted, standards of etiquette when you go to the theater or go to a performance. But, I've heard the other side of it is that, if somebody's responding like that, and they're not heckling in a negative way, how nice that they're that engaged and moved by what you're doing. Is that a way to look at it at all? I mean, you have to deal with it one way or another, I suppose.
It only matters, like you said, if it's affecting the other audience members, because then it's like kind of your job to be like, oh, okay, I gotta fix this. They deserve to hear the show. Like I had this woman who used to come to all my shows, and I was having my album recording. I had to say, are you coming? Because her laugh was so obnoxious, it ruined every joke for everyone else in the audience. It was just like a, and it was like, and I'm just starting out my joke. I mean, I haven't even said a word, and now you can't hear, and I was just like, you can't come. I'm so sorry. I'll do a private show for you. But yeah, it's bad.
It's gonna cost you.
Yeah,
I've observed that, in watching a lot of stand-up comedy, it seems that a lot of stand-up comedians have their stock way of dealing with hecklers. And what it seems to be most of the time is that they will address them and kind of make them part of the show to shut them down or insult them, or make the jokes about them, and that usually stops it. I mean, is that the method? Are there other methods? I mean, how do you handle it?
We were at we were just a patron at a show, and the comedian had the person removed, was just like, this guy gone. I don't know, is that something that you have to do?
My best friend was a women's basketball player, so she usually removes people from me, but I know what you mean. Yeah, sometimes you have to just be like, Bethany, go over there.
Out, yeah.
I've seen it done.
I played a sports bar in Riverside, California once, and we went on after the hockey game. And, yeah, exactly. It's already like, what? And the woman, the audience, the member of the audience made the woman who went up before me, he made her cry. And she left, she left before she even got paid. So I was like, oh crap. So I got up there, and what I did was I took the microphone and I walked out to the guy, sat down next to him and said, you seem like you have a lot to say. What do you want to to talk about.
Oh my God.
And that worked, because he was there for the hockey game. He drank like 10 beers and was like not ready for a comedy show, but stayed because I don't think he could move. The best way was once she put the spotlight on him, he was done talking.
I forced him to perform in front of children with me because he was a cool comedian who I could count on. So one time I made him do 20 minutes for a whole room of children, and he was amazing. But tell your story.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because she was heckling the whole time.
Yeah, there was this little girl that was in the front row, and she was basically responding to everything I said. You ever do this? And she'd go, I've done that, I've done that. So the whole time she's like, and at one point I say something like, I could watch this movie alone, home in my underwear, and she goes, I don't want to see that. Okay. Well, finally, it gets to the point where I'm going to introduce Gab. So I go, hey, I have a great idea. I got the girl from the audience to come up and said, I want you to introduce Gab, okay? Because you know our next performer, and you're ready. And I gave her the microphone, and she went, and I was like, Gab Vanessa, Gab's coming to the stage. Say Gab's coming to the stage. He said, and I took the microphone, and I was like, now you're not talking? You're talking the entire 20 minutes, and now you're not talking. Give me that microphone.
That is a perfect antagonist for you. I think there's a show in that, actually. Like she's your manager, she's really
It's true.
You go, oh, 15 minutes.
Let's pretend that I think I'm really funny. And I want to get into stand-up comedy, or writing comedy, or performing comedy. I've never done any of it. What do I need to do?
Take a class. Not you, because you are really funny. But yes, he's being a pretend person.
Take a class.
Not you. Have some class. No. I feel that the best way is, watch other performers. Go to a couple open mics before you get up there. Don't go, this is my first time to a comedy club. I want to do 15 minutes. And the other thing is, if you're up there and no one is laughing, don't keep going. Say, thank you, and get off the effing stage. Because we know a lot of people at these open mics, they were told they have 7 minutes. They're doing their whole 7 minutes, whether the place is on fire or not.
Well, that is admirable to a degree, I guess. Say what you come to say. Chris agrees.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Carnegie Screenwriters Fade In, our special series, The Art of Comedy, a panel discussion. I'm Mike Bizzelli, and we'll see you for the next episode.